you beautiful people. Welcome into Redacted. I'm Clayton Morris.
I'm Natalie Morris.
This is a show where we hope to bring you the stories that you won't see in the mainstream media, or maybe the stories with a little bit more context and clarity that are often being censored by the mainstream media. So coming up on today's show, we're going to be talking about Dr. Fauci, who just gave a bombshell interview this afternoon, was asked about those Shanghai lockdowns, the ridiculous draconian lockdowns where people are starving and jumping off of balconies. And he has some thoughts on those lockdowns. You wait until you hear what he has to say about this.
Plus, we're going to discuss credit scores and how that is more important than ever in the current economic climate. And we have a lot to say about media censorship, and we hope we will not be censored for saying it.
Well, we were banned on YouTube for a week. We're back. Yes, we were blocked for a week, but we are back tonight, and we're back last night. We had some crazy issues last night with our software with Restream. It was nothing to do with us, fortunately. So for those of you that are wondering,
this time we did not get another demerit.
It wasn't my fault,
and it wasn't Philip's fault. It was. Restream is actually located. The software company for Restream is actually located in Ukraine, of all places. And so we don't know what happened, but our stream went down last night, which is why it is so stinking important for you guys to be on our mailing list, because a lot of people write to us and say, thank God we are on your email newsletter. Otherwise, we wouldn't have known to go over to Rumble, etc. So our daily newsletter is morninginvest.com. Go and grab that. That name is going to be changing very soon. But right now, that is the newsletter. Go to morninginvest.com, sign up. You get a great newsletter first thing in the morning, but then you're also on our email list so we can tell you, hey, guys, jump over here to Rumble. YouTube has banned us. Very, very important that we're able to communicate with you in that way.
And thank you, everybody in the chat who's saying hello. Hi, Natalie, Clayton, and David. We also have Philip with us. They are brothers. So both boys are here, yes?
Yes, I think so.
Can you hear me?
Yes,
David
David's
is coming
here.
in quiet.
So
Okay.
David had a pinched nerve, and he's been like...
no, still have. Yeah, I have to go in for treatment tomorrow to see my x-rays, but yeah, I'm looking at probably a good week or so of physical therapy because I can't even use my right arm really.
Yikes. Okay.
So take it easy, no button pressing, but always great to have all of our voices. We love hearing Philip's voice, David's voice.
Yeah, no, I feel like my day's not complete when I can't be on the show.
I know. I'm bummed when you're not here, and so I love the four of us being able to have a conversation.
Especially because if David's not here, then I'm doing both David and like what he does during the show in the back end and what I do in the show in the back end. So I'm super quiet when David's not here because I'm just like I'm like a DJ. I've got 3 screens going and
you've got buttons to press, everything to keep the show afloat. So,
yeah.
And Grim also here, who does all of our graphics and a lot of our back end graphic work here on the show, is in our chat as well. So we've got the whole team here tonight. So
We got The Boys. Did you guys ever see that documentary, The Boys, about the 2 brothers who worked together to write basically every Disney classic song you've ever...
Oh yeah, what are their names? It's called this.
I can't remember. The Sherman Brothers.
Sherman Brothers.
Yeah, Sherman
The
Brothers.
Sherman
They're in the. I don't know if you guys have seen Savings, which is a Disney movie with Tom Hanks and Emma Watson.
I have not seen it.
Oh, it's so good. You got to watch it.
Yeah.
Okay, but the documentary, The Boys, is about 2 boys. It reminds me of you guys because you work so well together, and then sometimes it's clear you don't always see eye to eye. And they were like creative genius, but not great siblings. So every time I say The Boys are here, I think of the Sherman Brothers.
Well,
you guys are
so
creative genius.
The reason I brought that up is because that movie is about the creation of Mary Poppins, and those guys were writing the song, so it shows them together working.
I would like to see that, but definitely seek out the documentary.
It's
okay,
funny.
I'm sorry I went on a tangent.
Okay.
David and I
Let's
have
talk
done,
about the news.
Yeah, let's get to the news now. All right, let's talk about this. The horrible scenes. Let's start today with this story out of Shanghai and Dr. Fauci. And the horrible scenes out of Shanghai, China, guys, continue to mount as the communist country pushes its impossible zero COVID policy. It's never going to happen, FYI. You're never going to eliminate COVID. COVID, of course, is coronavirus, which has been around for, hundreds of years. It's in many ways, it's the common cold. So you're not going to eradicate it, but they're trying with these draconian lockdowns on the curbs now outside of buildings overnight. I don't know if you've seen the videos. We're not going to show them to you here because they're just absolutely awful. And as pet lovers here on Redacted, David, Philip, myself, Natalie, there's no way, and our audience, you all love pets, we're not going to show you these images, but on the curbs outside of these buildings now around Shanghai, there's just bags filled with the family pets. Because if you have had a slight case of COVID in your building, it doesn't matter, the entire building's pets now must be killed. Now must be put in plastic bags and then dropped out on the curbside, and the videos are absolutely horrifying. But this is Shanghai, China, guys. This is what's actually happening. We've told you how people are
have to kill me.
Oh yeah, I mean, I'm like, no. This is why I'm going to jump off a balcony, because you're not going to actually do this to me. No freaking way. We've also told you about how people are starving, unable to get food in deliveries. They're jumping off of balconies. And now this new video, which just surfaced today, which is unbelievable, it was confirmed. It thought it was like a viral video that, hey, this can't be true. Sure enough, it is, with people just screaming off of their balconies. They just can't take it anymore. And this would be me. I would be out there all night just...
I want to join them right now. In fact, everybody silently scream with them.
Listen to all these people. This is real.
这个来叫，好了，终于来了，所有人都在叫，要命了！就刚刚
Oh my god.
5分钟前头，俺们叫了没几个了，现在突然之间，所有人都叫了，要死！
So this is from a few nights ago. So that video is from a few nights ago. People thought, oh, that's fake. That's not real. And now we can confirm that it is the case. But this has been happening not just a few nights ago. This has been happening like every night. There's been repeated nights of this like screaming where people are freaking out in China. Well, now Dr. Fauci is talking about this.
Right. In an interview today, he says, yeah, you know, lockdowns, that's what you need to do, when asked whether he endorses this. But then when asked about lockdowns in the United States, he wasn't so clear. Let's listen to what he has to say.
How concerning is the outbreak in China? We see the lockdown in Shanghai, and the State Department now ordering families out, all non-essential workers out of Shanghai.
Well, China has a number of problems, two of which are that their complete lockdown, which was their approach, a strictest lockdown that you'd never be able to implement in the United States, although that prevents the spread of infection. And remember, early on, they were saying, and I think accurately, that they were doing better than almost anybody else. But lockdown has its consequences. You use lockdowns to get people vaccinated. So
Whoa. Did you just hear that? Okay, you use the he's admitting that this is theater. You use the lockdowns to get people vaccinated.
That we were never told that, right? 15 days to stop the spread.
Right.
We were all told to get in line, to stay home in order to protect other people before there even was a vaccine approved or discussed. We didn't even know what pharmaceutical company. So like, let's rewind the tape a little bit, but let's let him keep talking, because that was outrageous.
That when you open up, you won't have a surge of infections because you're dealing with an immunologically naive population to the virus because they've not really been exposed because of the lockdown. The problem is that the vaccines that they've been using are not nearly as effective as the vaccines that are used in the United States, the UK, EU, and other places.
So
wait, by that logic, though, he says the problem is that when you let people out of lockdowns, they are more exposed because they've been in like it's almost like that movie Room with Brie Larson, right? Like her and her kid, because they were inoculated in this one, like kept imprisoned.
Right.
They couldn't be exposed to the world because they were immunocompromised, right?
Right.
And so by this logic, all of us would do that when we were in lockdowns together, and that was never a part of the conversation.
Unbelievable. Like, and he basically says, yeah, this is pretty good. You know, Shanghai lockdowns, yeah, pretty good. You know, like we would
need to do this because their vaccines are crappier than ours.
Yeah, and oh, by the way, yeah, we would never get those. You know, as much as I love the idea of doing this massive lockdown in Shanghai, you know, in the United States, it just would not happen. You know, people just would say, no, we're not going to do this. Like, that's the issue. And it's unbelievable. But, you know, he's saying the quiet part out loud here. He's admitting that this is all theater. I mean, he's admitting that this is all, like, these lockdowns are just a joke. It's all political moves to keep control of a population. If you want to control a population, if you want to clamp down on small business, eradicate competition for Wall Street, you know, move a population in your way under surveillance. I mean, the Chinese would love nothing more than to have cameras in every person's house in China. So
perhaps that is some sort of admission that it's, or maybe it just seems like a stupidity. Like you can poke so many holes into what he just said that it's almost not even worth listening to, because there's so much and so many flaws in the logic that should we even put stock into it?
Well, I mean, this is our most, he's our top doctor in the United States. Like, yes, we should put stock into it. He's the doctor who's on national television on a regular basis at the White House in meetings. By all accounts, is a criminal. I mean, he's absolutely lied before Congress. He's lied when pressed on gain-of-function research.
Yes.
He's lied repeatedly, and he is the highest paid member of the government in America. Even when he makes more money than Congress or the President of the United States.
Let's just think about why somebody would go on national TV, right? MSNBC has invited him to come on to inform us about something, right? And what he just said there served no purpose at all.
Well, to me, it serves a purpose. Well, not to him. It serves a purpose in showing how these governments want control. I mean, I think he just let the cat out of the bag. Maybe he just didn't get enough sleep, but he said the quiet part out loud. Some people in the chat are like, maybe he just had like a random sort of like
maybe it's misspeaking, perhaps, right? But he says things here that are part of it. He assumes things that we should not assume because we were never told those things, such as staying home will push us all to get vaccinated. Right. Which again, or staying home will make us more vulnerable when we actually leave the house, which again was not talked about. It does seem that he is starting to admit that there are harms to lockdowns, not just financial harms, right? But like emotional, social harms, health consequences, that kind of thing. At least that seems to be a part of the conversation. I don't know.
Well, and also, he makes this big leap about how China, did better than most places with their lockdowns in the beginning, which is garbage. You're going to believe that. So the data is out today that they're doing better. Turns out that this is a lie, that the American media were spreading as well, is that if your state was locked down, like if you were in one of those states that went really draconian lockdown, then you were doing better off, right? Well,
Sasha says emotional damage.
I
mean, it's a funny way to see it, right? When you use that term, but yes, absolutely, you can see this is creating emotional damage.
Well, and not just that. I mean, economic. Look what it did. 200,000 small businesses.
Yes.
Right.
Close.
I mean, this is, to me, it's about control, David. I mean, to me, it's like, this is what Carol Roth writes about in her War on Small Business, which is, it's about control. And it's about paving the way for these big businesses that spend millions of dollars on lobbying money. And she has the evidence and the data to show, like, as Walmart moves into a small town and destroys all of these small businesses, it takes time. Well, wouldn't it be great if you had a government that just did it for you? Like just clamp down on a population and just eradicate all of these small businesses? Then Walmart can sustain that, right? Walmart can deal with it because they can move to just digital and online distribution of their products. They can sustain that because they've got the war chest of money to be able to handle that. The same thing with Amazon. And that's how it works. And by the way, I just want to go back to Dr. Fauci saying that these lockdown economies did better and that they were better served health-wise than the non-lockdown economies. And that's absolutely not true. The new data out today shows that that's a lie. A new study out today found out that from like freedom-loving states like Florida, South Dakota, performed significantly better than states like New York and California. Which, by the way, think about New York, which lied about its numbers, right?
Yes.
If anything, underreported the amount of deaths that it had to deal with at nursing homes and so forth. They imposed harsh lockdowns in those states and restrictions in terms of health, economy, and education. And the study says, like other numerous studies, the authors found no relationship between lockdowns, measured in this case by economic impact and health outcomes. If anything, there was a slight correlation between remaining open and lower mortality. If your state was open, you did better.
Yet, people were punished online for asking whether or not they should be naturally exposed to this virus, which might create, right? Even talking about, what did we call it in Sweden?
Natural immunity.
Not natural immunity, herd immunity, right?
Oh, yeah.
That was something you would be punished for. Now, this is an economic study. It was done by professors of economics. So that when they say health score, though, they are specifically measuring COVID deaths. And then the economy score, they're measuring based on GDP. Right? So you would like to be high on both ends. So if you look at the states that had more civil liberties or personal freedom, they scored better. Again, we're not specifically looking at the health indicators of people. We're looking at who died of COVID more, right?
Right.
Okay, so those things are, so that's a question. Can we now say, is there such a thing as herd immunity? Is that worth looking into? Again, these are economists, right? So they're not going to study virility, but it's worth asking.
Yeah.
Well, and the Amish pretty much proved that it was possible. Right. And the thing that gets me too with Fauci is we have a guy that right from the very beginning, what did he do? He tried to silence other voices that were credible scientists. Yes. And try to control the narrative. He lied initially about masks. He's lied many times throughout the course of this whole entire thing. And then anybody that comes with any kind of information that sidesteps him, well, they're questioning science and they're silenced, even though many of them are far more accredited than he is. And so, like, how is this guy still leading the narrative with everything we've seen that has been a disaster through this pandemic?
Yes. And plus, in February, there was a study from Johns Hopkins that looked at whether or not lockdowns actually reduced COVID deaths. They concluded no, but they were able to quantify all kinds of negative effects of lockdowns. So these are conversations that we have only just begun to have at this point, right? And so maybe, here's just a thought, it's time to have somebody at the head of the Center for Infectious Disease that can discuss those things. And who's speaking out for people, who's speaking out for oncologists now who have to catch up for all the work they couldn't do during lockdowns? Who's speaking on behalf of all sorts of marginalized populations? Who's speaking out on behalf of battered spouses? Who's speaking out on behalf of children, right? Like, it's time to have someone who will speak for all of these subpopulations, not just someone who's worried about infectious diseases, because health is holistic.
And doctors who were, banned or fired because they were on the front lines doing all of the hard work, and then when it came to the point of
seeing patients.
Actually seeing patients, yes. And then they were mandated to get a vaccine, and they're like, no, I had COVID, I have natural immunity. And even Dr. Fauci has said that natural immunity on the flu is, having that is better than any vaccine you could possibly ever have. Why are you mandating this at this hospital? I'm not going to do that. And then they're fired. Like, who's going to advocate for them? And if you speak out on for those people, you get banned, you get censored, you get blocked. You can't talk about those things. You can't talk about those things because all of our media is brought to you by Pfizer.
By Pfizer. CBS Health Watch sponsored by Pfizer. Anderson Cooper 360. Brought to you by Pfizer. ABC News Nightline. Brought to you by Pfizer.
Well, we are not sponsored by Pfizer, but I'm going to tell you who we are sponsored.
Just a second.
You have something else to say?
No. I was just going to say, yes, we're not brought to you by Pfizer, but I was just going to say that coming up in the show, we're going to talk about credit scores and how Americans are just getting crushed right now under the weight of their medical debt. And they're taking on additional credit card debt right now because inflation and because prices are just going through the roof. So we have a 3-week plan. We're going to talk about credit scores and how we can actually fix them and set you on the right path to adding points there. So we're going to talk about that. We're also going to talk about Elon Musk this afternoon, because some big news on Elon Musk and trying to take back control of Twitter. All of that and more. But first,
I want to tell you about our show sponsor over at AARP. Now, having recently lost an in-law, one of my in-laws died last year, I've been doing a lot of research about the benefits and lack thereof for Americans when they get older. And I have recently come to the conclusion, after doing a lot of reading, that there are not a lot, right? Who is it that advocates for people once they get older? You may think, oh, I don't need to think about this until I'm over my retirement age, but you would be incorrect. AARP is a brand or is an association that advocates for people of retirement age and beyond. You may think, oh, this is something I'll think about when I'm 50 and beyond, but really this is something we all should think about, because as we get older, we're more concerned about affordable health care, lower prescription costs, and protecting Social Security and Medicare, because it's all we've got. It's not a great program, but AARP is out there to make it better for people. I mean, look, once you get a certain age, you have given your best working years into your social contract for your country. Someone has to speak for you to actually get the benefits that you have worked your whole life for. AARP members enjoy access to hundreds of benefits, discounts, and social programs. Plus, they're out there helping you find the best places to, say, get family caregiving support, job board and resume advisors, driver safety tips, insurance, financial planning, retirement, and Social Security. They are the largest advocacy group for people 50 and over, and you have instant access to news and community events. Plus, my mother likes to share with me the AARP magazine, and I was reading it recently, and they had some fantastic doctors talking about whether or not you should get your 4th booster, right? And so this is a great way to talk about, like, with a community of like-minded individuals who are interested in their health and well-being, and what kind of questions should you be asking your doctor in this time when we're all worried about health and healthy living. So right now you can try the benefits for yourself. Go to aarp.org/morninginvest to join for just $12 for your first year with an automatic renewal. You'll get a second membership for free, plus this AARP magazine that I have talked many times about. I do enjoy reading. It's aarp.org/morninginvest. Remember that the world gets increasingly confusing, and you, as someone who has given your whole life to working for your country, should have somebody looking out for your best interest to make sure that you are taken care of in your elderly years. So we thank them so much for their support. That's aarp.org/morninginvest.
Well, a new study out this morning from Bloomberg shows that Americans need $5,200 more this year to live the exact same life. Yeah, that's 5,000. That's 5,000 extra bucks that they need to live. At the same time, more Americans than ever are living paycheck to paycheck. In fact, 61% of Americans run out of money before the next paycheck even arrives. And that means more Americans are falling further and further behind on credit cards and other debt services, which is lowering their credit score. David Coulter knows a thing or two about fixing credit scores. He's the CEO of Scoremaster. He joins us now to talk about the current state of affairs and how people can fix their overall credit scores. David, welcome to the show. Great to have you here, my friend.
Hey, thank you for letting me join.
Well, a few days ago on my show, we talked about it. We asked our audience, actually, this question about medical debt because we were covering a medical debt-related story, and it's awful. And I asked my audience, if they've been affected by it. And overwhelmingly in the chat, I just saw, it was unbelievable, the answers that were flying through in our chat. They told me that they've gone into massive debt. They've had credit scores ruined as a result. This is a real crisis in the United States, no?
Yeah, Clayton, let me point out that most people don't even know that they have these types of collection accounts on their credit report, these little dings and nits that people see from time to time. They're not sure how it affects our credit score and what it means. And then a lot of times they don't even discover it until they go to apply for something, and then it stops the whole financing that they're doing. The good news is that the 3 credit bureaus are soon going to be excluding from your score and removing from your credit report any medical collection account that has been paid. Now, I want to emphasize that it is the ones that are paid. So keep that in mind. And that will help out consumers. But there's a lot of things like that and other issues that Scoremaster helps people out with.
Well, politicians don't even seem to be really doing anything about this at all. And certainly banks don't seem to care at all, right? If it affects their bottom line, maybe they'll do something about it. And they're certainly in bed with the politicians. They're not really doing anything to fix it. Am I right?
Well, they're not. And consumers are just left and getting hit with this trifecta right now. And the trifecta is inflation. It is interest rates. It is tighter monetary policy. So inflation, interest rates, and tighter monetary policy are a big issue that are hitting consumers these days. And it's important that consumers know what to do and deal with it. Like you started off this show by saying you need $5,200 more. I mean, that really puts it into context. And when you go to get some financing, they are looking at your credit score and your ability to repay even more. So what you need is a credit score that reflects your full financial potential. And most people don't understand how to achieve their full financial potential. And that's why I'm really happy to be partnering with your show and all the consumers out there that we've already helped through Scoremaster, so they can see their points, they can see what their future points are, and they can use our action button and tools to get there. And it's really important for consumers to achieve their full financial potential before they apply for any credit or financing.
Yeah, so we need to take matters into our own hands. And let's start with the basics here, because you guys at Scoremaster have already helped so many of our audience members. We get emails from our audience members quite a bit, and messages that said, thank you for telling us about Scoremaster, because they've already been managing to fix their credit. Even David, my co-host, has been able to fix his credit. He had something he didn't even know about that was on his credit score that was really limiting his ability to get a loan. So you guys have something you call the 3-week rule, which I absolutely love. Can you break down exactly what this is?
Yeah, so before you go out looking for any type of financing or apply for anything, go to Scoremaster/redacted in honor of this show, Scoremaster.com/redacted. And what you will see after signing up in about 1 minute is what your current credit score is. But more importantly, you'll see how many plus points you can add to your credit score, and the buttons and tools and the plan, specifically how to get there. It's so simple and it's so easy. And let me tell you, the average person in Scoremaster is going up approximately 60 points on their credit score in 20 days or less. And that is life-changing. That can make the difference between qualifying or unlocking the best deals and saving a tremendous amount of deal. And in that trifecta that are hitting consumers, especially with tighter monetary policy, increasing interest rates, and inflation, you need to maximize your credit score before you apply for anything, because that will help you offset what that trifecta is doing to consumers, because you'll have a lower down payment on your home, for example, or you'll have lower payments overall. And that will factor into whether or not you can get qualified into the first place. So it's been a very successful program, and we've been able to help many in your audience.
That's amazing. You say 60 points. I mean, 60, 61 points seems like a stretch. I mean, really, to be honest with you, it sounds like, wow, this is like too good to be true, right? When we see credit score commercials bragging about raising a credit score 10 or 20 points, and how are you guys able to move that needle 60 to 61 points?
Yeah, so our credit data scientists came up with a way of looking at the credit report in a new angle and seeing how that consumers are stressing out their finances, determining when the banks are reporting to the credit reporting agencies, determining what issues and so forth are on their credit reports, and precisely how many points they are affecting. And then what we do is we create a plan, and we say, do this by this specific date, this action button, and so forth, and you can move that needle and that dial and get those plus points. And so with the average of about 60 points in 20 days or less, it's slightly more than that, it allows consumers to very quickly get the best deals they can, unlock the deals they thought they could never achieve before, and to offset this trifecta that's hitting them so hard right now. And so what a lot of folks are doing and going to Scoremaster.com/redacted is takes 1 minute to sign up. They see their plus points and they're getting their plus points. And then they realize they have the power, not the banks. They have the power to get the best deals that are out there. And this is the way consumers need to start thinking. Don't just rush out and apply for something. Make sure you see your points and get your points first.
So when I go to Scoremaster.com/redacted, how am I able to tell specifically like how many points I could add to my credit score? You mentioned the slider, and how long could like one of our audience members expect this to take? I know David, I think if memory serves, our producer David did this, and it took him just like, I don't know, it was a few days. It was not very long at all to get this thing moved. So what can people expect when they go there?
Yeah, great question. So when you sign up, it just takes a quick minute to sign up. The first thing you see is your plus points that you can get in 2 of our features. One feature is called Score Builder. That looks on your credit report, such as these medical collection accounts and late payments and so forth, and things that are dings on your credit report. And we have an action button for you to communicate directly with the source of the reporting. That's key. We have a patent on that. And so you're communicating with the source and you're saying, this medical collection account was paid, please remove it. Or I was never late, please remove it. Or we even have such things like as a goodwill correction removal, which basically says to American Express, hey, I've been with you for 6 years and I was late 3 months ago, but I'm in good standing now. Would you please remove it? And half the time they do it. So the score builder feature is a way for you to go in and see how many points you can earn by getting rid of the common problems and so forth that are affecting your credit score there. Then we have the score boost feature, which deals with credit utilization. And there you got a little dial that you can see how many plus points you can add to your score and precisely how many days it will take for you to get that score. What's really great about people who have worked very hard over the years and have a really good credit score is our score boost feature works in the opposite direction, showing people how many minus points they're going to affect their credit score when they spend too much. And so what our technology does is it lays out the plus points that you have in our score builder, and our score boost feature gives you action buttons that the individual can take on their own directly with the source. And it works very fast. And we tell you, for example, on our score boost feature, we say you need to pay this bill by this date, not the due date. Many people think that if I pay my bill in full by the due date, that I should have the rewards of a better credit score. Not necessarily. You need to pay it before that bank reports. And so we point those things out and we tell you exactly which bank to pay first, second, and third, how many points it's going to take, how long it will take you. And so the consumer can sign up and they can deal with the problems they have on their credit report, and they can also deal with the stressed out nature of their finances as well, and prep themselves for financing. And what we have found is most consumers get this done in about 21 days, about 3 weeks. That's where the 3-week rule comes in. And we are seeing consumers time after time getting 20 points, 40 points, 70 points, even more, just based upon following the plan that is laid out, and they take the actions, and they don't need to go hire some other firm, or they don't need to, they can do it in the comfort of their own home and utilize the features that we have that our credit data scientists have put together. It's really quite good.
This is really about like not letting the banks control your life. I mean, and they do right now, don't they?
They do. You know, we love it when consumers achieve their full financial potential, because that gives them the ability to shop. And Americans are far more patient. I mean, unless you have like a medical emergency, you need to apply for a credit card immediately. That's a little bit different. But most Americans are far more patient. I mean, if you knew that you were a 700 score, but you could get to a 750, what would you do in looking to apply for a credit card or for a home loan? You would work to get that 750, because the differences are huge. For example, just on a standard car loan, if you are a 600 score and you go to a 650 score on a standard $35,000 auto loan, you're going to save $9,000 over the life of that loan. And if you're at a 700 and you go to a 750 on a mortgage, you can save on the average home loan, you can save $20,000 on your down payment and over $100,000 on your payments over the life of it. So this is why consumers need to take control of their credit score to offset the trifecta that is hitting consumers, giving them the power and taking it away from the banks. And I'll tell you something, it is so satisfying. Just like your coworker there, David, who happens to be David, great name. He went in just a couple of days, his score was able to go up. It is definitely possible. Consumers are doing it all the time, and it works very fast.
That's great. David, we're about out of time here, but how can people learn more about Scoremaster? Where should they go to start working on this?
Well, in honor of your show, Scoremaster.com/redacted, Scoremaster.com/redacted. And it's a very fast sign up, and immediately you'll be able to see your plus points. And that's where I recommend consumers go. At least be aware of the plus points you can add to your credit score, if nothing else. And you can decide when and if you want to push the buttons and follow the plans and so forth to get those points. But certainly follow the 3-week rule, because that is really important for consumers. It's the new way Americans are looking at financing. The old way of just going out and blindly financing something or applying for something, that's the old busted way of doing it. The new great way is Scoremaster.com/redacted. See your points, get your points, giving you the power to go and unlock the best deals that are out there.
Well, David, it's been great having you here on the show, breaking down how to take control back from these banks. We really appreciate you joining us here on Redacted. Thanks so much for joining us.
My pleasure. I always love it. Have a great day.
Thanks so much. And we'll have a link in the description below. If you go to scoremaster.com/redacted, again, that'll be in the description of the show.
All right. Well, we'd like to tell you about our show sponsor over at IPVanish. Are you tired of feeling like someone's always watching you on the internet? You would be right if you felt that way. Advertisers know a bit too much about you. And did you know that media companies are actually lobbying Congress so that they can track you more? So even though MSNBC and Fox seem like they have nothing in common, you know what they have in common? They want to track you. Do you want to not be tracked? I want to not be tracked. You can use incognito mode to solve that, or you cannot use incognito mode to solve this problem either. You need a VPN like IPVanish. IPVanish VPN is here to protect your right to privacy and help you stay anonymous. It helps you browse the internet without exposing your private details to third parties, such as hackers or your ISP or advertisers. You can use it on your computer, tablet, and phone, all connected devices. And when you use IPVanish, all of your data is then encrypted. This means that your private details, passwords, communications, browsing history, and more will be completely shielded from falling into the wrong hands. Even your physical location will be hidden. IPVanish makes you virtually invisible online. It's that simple. You can use IPVanish on unlimited devices without sacrificing on speed. Whenever I'm at home or I go out in public, I don't go online anymore without using IPVanish. And IPVanish is offering an incredible 70% off their yearly plan for our listeners only with a 30-day money-back guarantee. That's like getting 9 months for free. IPVanish is super easy to use. All you have to do is tap one button and you're instantly protected and you won't even know it's on. Stop sharing with the world everything about you, what you watch, what you search for, what you buy. Take privacy back with the brand that has a 4.6 out of 5 on Trustpilot. So right now, go to ipvanish.com/invest, use promo code INVEST, and claim that 70% off for yourself. That's ipvanish.com/invest.
All right, we got more news to get to. Let's talk about censorship, and the censorship is on the rising. Now, on this show, we've been covering the growing list of big tech companies that have been clamping down on free speech, right?
Yes.
We've been talking quite a bit about. They're doing it by deplatforming users, taking channels off of their platform that swim at odds with the elites in Silicon Valley. Here are just a few examples, right? I just wrote down a few examples that I could think of off the top of my head over the past few weeks.
Us?
Well,
are we at top of the list?
I was thinking of the big tech companies. So Twitter, Facebook, Google.
Oh, about
Twitch,
people who
Twitch
has
just
been...
took down 2 big streamers.
Yeah, we're going to talk about that here in a second.
Okay.
Twitch, Google, YouTube, Twitter, Facebook. God, I mean, the list is endless at this point.
Fitter. I thought you were talking about people who've been punished. That list is so long.
Well, here, let's go. I have a list here. I've scrolled down a list.
Well, and if they had their way, Rumble too.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, yeah. So if you say something that that they don't like, they'll take you down. If you say something that speaks poorly of NATO's military involvement in Ukraine, so let me check that one off the list. If you say anything that challenges vaccine mandates, right, or report on actual data about vaccine efficacy, that could be get you blocked or taken down. That happened. That happened to us.
Yes.
Right? We were blocked twice. If you challenge the Western media narrative about what's actually happening in the war zone, like in wars like Ukraine,
yes,
you will be taken down. If you challenge Justin Trudeau's government crackdown on freedom truckers, etc.,
yes,
you will be taken down. The list.
Hunter Biden's laptop, you were taken down.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Yes.
Yeah, you can't. Yeah, if you meant the list is endless, right?
If you point out somebody's biological gender, you will be taken down. Or if you misname them, mean you use their birth name rather than their chosen name,
right,
you will be taken down.
Well, as we reported last night, there's a new front in this line of censorship now. And it involves smug little asshole journalists who call themselves journalists, these little journalists are basically reaching out to major tech platforms under the auspices of writing stories where they're basically reporting the accounts they find offensive or questionable. So let me explain. Last night, we shared the story about the Globe and Mail reporter who actively was pushing Rumble to try and censor certain creators. Like,
now, I did reply him on Twitter and ask him if he was going to look into not only why Rumble refused to censor certain platforms, but why other platforms were in fact censoring, because that would make an unbiased research for a journalist, right? That's sort of journalism 101, is that you should interview someone from both sides. Didn't hear a reply back, but I did ask. Of course,
because you don't fit into that. No, that's outside of the narrative. You can't actually have that discussion. He has an agenda, and he wants the answers within that agenda. Well, today we're learning the very same thing David mentioned a second ago from the Financial Times. So if the Financial Times, not like Globe and Mail, I mean, Globe and Mail is still a big publication, but the Financial Times. So let's break this down. So the Financial Times was working on a story about Amazon and Twitch. And they yanked down a channel. It's called Infrared. I think it's called Infrared specifically. And the head of that channel, Infrahaz, tweeted this: breaking, the reason for both my and Jackson Hinkle's ban from Twitch was because they were contacted by journalists from the Financial Times today after a Tech Transparency Project report defamed our stream content as, quote, Kremlin propaganda. Here's the story in question from Amazon. This is the Financial Times piece. Let me just pull up the full piece here on ft.com. You can actually read it. Live streaming platform has sought to block harmful misinformation after Moscow's invasion of Ukraine. And then here's the headline. Amazon's Twitch bans some channels after researchers find pro-Russia propaganda. Then it goes on.
And they're failing to say that they're the researchers.
Right. Oh, I know. And not until later in the piece does it even claim here that the channel had almost 20,000 followers. It was banned shortly after the company was contacted by the Financial Times on Wednesday evening, as there were three others cited in the TTP report. So these journalists, I guess you could almost call them like activist journalists. They're finding content on Twitch and other platforms that they don't like.
Yes.
And they're reaching out to these companies. It's like calling up YouTube and be like, hey guys, do you guys know that there's a channel that's talking about some things that are unfolding in Ukraine? And I don't like it. I'm a reporter with the New York Times.
Well, what are they saying? Let's break down specifically what they're saying that they don't like. I think Glenn Greenwald does a great job in his Substack, saying it's not people who are saying, yeah, Russia was right to invade Ukraine. No, it's people who are actually questioning whether it makes sense to arm Ukraine. Right.
This is Glenn Greenwald's piece.
And specifically ask whether or not it's wise for NATO and Western expansion to happen. Is that actually in our best interest of humanity?
He writes, their crime, this is what Glenn Greenwald writes, their crime, like the crime of so many other banished accounts, was not disinformation, but skepticism about the U.S. NATO propaganda campaign. Put another way, it's not disinformation, but rather viewpoint error that is targeted for silencing. One can spread as many lies and as much disinformation as one wants to, provided that it is designed to advance the NATO agenda in Ukraine. That's the truth.
Yes. It's nobody here is saying, oh, Russia was justified in going in and we think Russia's doing a great job. That none of this is that content at all. It's skepticism about what is Ukraine doing with all of these weapons. Is it right to take a side here, and what side are we taking, and can we look because a lot of people didn't even know where Ukraine was on a map, that all of a sudden are trying to change their Twitter flags, right? And so if you didn't otherwise know much about Ukrainian government and all of a sudden you support its existence, right? Is that informed consent? Should we maybe think about it's just critical thinking that is being attacked here.
And I think one thing that we don't know either is it starts off with the journalist contacting, and if the platform takes action after hearing from the journalist, but let's say they don't, because what happened to DuckDuckGo? Were they contacted by somebody higher after a journalist tried maybe to ask them questions? We don't know the whole story. Is there a process? If they're not taken down by this method, then the DOJ comes in, or whoever comes in after that to try.
Yes.
Or Vanguard or Blackstone. I've said on this show that I'm going to be talking more and more about them, because it really is true what these guys are run by. And these whether it's the Council on Foreign Relations or Blackstone or Vanguard, these large, massive multinational hedge funds that have their hands in everything. I mean, all it takes is one phone call from like the head of Blackstone Group to say, hey, NBC, you're not having that guy back on the show anymore. Otherwise, we're pulling up all of our funding to all of our advertising. Again, I want to come back to this. I will run it again just in case anyone who joined us here. I see a bunch of hundreds of other people that have just joined us. But this is what airs. This is who pays the bills. And so they can make a phone call and tell you to take this stuff off the air.
Good Morning America is brought to you by Pfizer. CBS Health Watch sponsored by Pfizer. Anderson Cooper 360. Brought to you by Pfizer.
So wait a minute, let me just be clear. You have a Health Watch segment that's brought to you by a major pharmaceutical company, a Health Watch segment. So today we're going to be talking about vaccine efficacy. This segment is brought to you by Pfizer. That's like, doing a segment on the effects of sugar, and it's supported by Coca-Cola. It's financed by, sponsored by Coca-Cola.
What are they so afraid of, right? In the same vein as them being afraid of us talking about any contraindications of the vaccine, it was like you couldn't even talk about the most minute reporting of an adverse effect because they're worried that people are too skittish to think for themselves. And if you say one bad thing, then people won't go out and get vaccinated. The pandemic will rage on for all of us, right? There's holes in that logic, but I think it's insulting, the idea that you should not be able to think for yourself. You should not be able to read all sides of something, that you should not be able to see certain things because you are only to look down this tunnel and have tunnel vision. Right? And only think this one thing because the rest of us, look, we're all afraid of idiots. I'm afraid of idiots, sure, right? But I have to think better about society. You can't be that misanthropic to say like people just can't tell the difference. So we must tell them what to think. That's giving people the benefit of the doubt. Like on the one hand, they are actually trying to make you think things that benefit you, big business, corporations, government. And on the other hand, it's like maybe they just think you're too stupid to think for yourself. So I'm not sure which one I believe at this point.
This Noam Chomsky quote is exactly what it answers the question. People, the smart way to keep people passive and obedient is to strictly limit the spectrum of acceptable opinion, but allow very lively debate within that spectrum.
Within that small spectrum. And look, this is something I myself have come to appreciate because I've been a bit too busy to think critically about it. And I was one of those who cheered when Trump was taken off Twitter because I was like, that guy's obnoxious. Let's have less of him. And I did not see this coming, how it would then tamp down all other debate on things that will or will not control people. And I'm ashamed of that. And so at this point, we all have to be purists and speak out for speech that we don't like. It's essential, I think.
Well, and the thing is, like, when you look at they're trying to silence any question. If you don't want people asking questions, then that means you're hiding an answer. Because if you were being transparent and you had the answers to the questions, then you would welcome them. But obviously, you're questioning. So that just, in my opinion, and my feeling is that just proves that they're lying about things.
Well, and it's lying and hiding, and they're hypocritical, and they're and this is the thing that I think Glenn Greenwald points out, and I've got another story here in just a second, which is a bit of breaking news I want to show. But this is what Glenn Greenwald says here on this point about the other side, right? He says, yet there is no censorship either by Western states or by Silicon Valley monopolies of pro-Ukrainian disinformation, propaganda, and lies. The censorship goes only in one direction: to silence any voices deemed that are pro-Russian, regardless of whether they actually spread disinformation. The Russians with Attitude Twitter account became popular in part because they sometimes criticized Russia. These were two English speakers who ran this Russians with Attitude Twitter account. They were more careful with facts and viral claims than most U.S. corporate media outlets, in part because there's such a paucity of outlets that are actually willing to offer any information that undercuts the U.S. government and NATO want you to believe about the war. And of course, they were shut down. The Russians with Attitude Twitter account was account suspended. Well, just a few minutes ago, we got news that Warner Brothers was being slammed for what they're doing in China. See, here's the hypocrisy. right? These big Silicon Valley tech companies, they can tell you what you can and cannot hear. They can go all woke and tell you how we have to stand up for LGBTQ plus rights and on all of these things, right? But then when China says, hey, we want you to remove a 6-second clip, a gay scene out of the new Fantastic Beasts movie, the Dumbledore and Grindelwald film, to be released here in China, you have to remove this gay scene, otherwise you can't show it. And Warner Brothers goes, okay, fine, China, whatever you want, that's no problem. If it's going to cost us any money, we'll go ahead and do that. So now Warner Brothers under attack because they cut out this gay scene from the Fantastic Beasts movie to appease communist China. Like, this is amazing. Like, I love the hypocrisy of Silicon Valley. It's unbelievable. And it's hilarious because, you also had people going after J.K. Rowling herself for her stance about gender.
Yes.
It's like, it's hilarious, this back and forth. And I just find it absolutely
well, and it just
troubling.
further proves how this statement covers everything. Follow the money. Like, what is one thing that's going on that there's not somebody massively profiting from on the other end?
Yeah, exactly.
That and so it's like when you're looking at like the censorship aspect, if the truth was obvious, I mean, there would be no issue. The thing is, like, there's a long track record of which we later find out that what we thought was true, that the U.S. government told us was true,
Iraq?
that ended up being not true, and they knew about it. So there is a track record there that we should legitimately be skeptical. And it's so interesting that like you can look back at all these things like, but no, you have to believe us. And everybody's like, no, you have to believe them. And it's like, but it's not like I'm making this up.
Well, and just recently with the Hunter Biden laptop story, like there are still people who are banned from certain accounts because of that story. And that has been proven that they were correct, and now they're still banned. So like, what's the road to redemption for people getting banned for things that ended up being true?
Yes, yeah. And even, when the We Stand With Ukraine movement started, I just felt like I don't feel like I am prone to believe what the United States government is saying, period. And I just, I felt like I'm going to take a pause here and just wait, because it's a fool me once, shame on you. I'm not going to say that right. Well, there's no way that's coming out right. You know what I mean.
Fool me twice, shame on me.
George
W. Bush taught all of us that we should never try to say that.
You can't be fooled again. That's
but you can't be fooled again.
You can't be fooled twice is the point of the story.
Well, perhaps Elon Musk, perhaps our long national nightmare of woke Twitter will finally come to an end if Elon Musk has anything to do with it. Today, a lot of moving parts in this Elon Musk story that we want to get to, because it all goes to censorship, right? It's all part of it. So let's get through it. So let's kind of go through the timeline here, if we could. So 2 weeks ago, Elon Musk suddenly brought up the idea that, holy smokes, I'm going to invest in Twitter, and became the largest shareholder in Twitter's history. So owned more shares than even Jack Dorsey, the CEO, the founder of Twitter. And then the board reached out to him and said, hey, do you want to join Twitter? Do you want to come over and join us on Twitter to become since you're its largest shareholder? Then he said, no, thank you. And then everyone wondered, like, well, why would he do that? Well, if you understand anything about boards, you know that you can't really have activist board members. You've got to pretty much fall in line. So he's like, no, if I'm on the board, then I can't really shake things up as much as I'd like to. So I'm not going to do this. A lot of people thought, oh, is a hostile takeover coming next? And a hostile takeover would mean that he would offer to buy up all of the shares and take over the company. And that's exactly what we got today.
David called this one, actually. I'm going to give you that one, David.
Props.
Thank you.
Props. He said, I made an offer. And he made an offer. He made an offer to take over the company. He offered buying all outstanding shares of Twitter for higher than he paid for his shares. Now, to be clear about this, $54.20, right? $54.20 is in my mind, a really fantastic number. I mean, it's trading at about $45 right now. So this is well above what he even paid for his shares, and spiked the price. So this is even higher than where, but no, apparently that's not good enough. He was rebuffed because late this afternoon, Crown Prince, who owns millions of shares, is one of the top shareholders in Twitter, came out and said, no, your price is too low. We think that the value of Twitter is much higher than that. Sorry, we're not going to do that. But now Elon Musk has a plan B, because this was all unfolding this afternoon. Mm-hmm. Like, well, what's going to happen now? And then he was in the middle of a talk, and he was asked about what he's going to do if that plan doesn't go forward for him to buy up all these shares. Listen.
Last week when we spoke, Elon, I asked you whether you were thinking of taking over. You said no way. You said, I do not want to own Twitter. It is a recipe for misery. Everyone will blame me for everything. What on earth changed?
No, I think everyone will still blame me for everything. Yeah. If I acquire Twitter and something goes wrong, it's my fault, 100%. I think there will be quite a few errors. Yes.
It will be miserable, but you still want to do it. Why?
I mean, I hope it's not too miserable, but I just think it's important to the it's important to the function of democracy. It's important to the function of the United States as a free country and many other countries, and to help freedom in the world more broadly than the U.S. And so I think I think there's the risk, civilizational risk. Is decreased if Twitter, the more we can increase the trust of Twitter as a public platform. And so I do think this will be somewhat painful, and I'm not sure that I will actually be able to acquire it. And I should also say the intent is to retain as many shareholders as is allowed by the law in a private company, which I think is around 2,000 or so. So it's not like it's definitely not from the standpoint of let me figure out how to monopolize or maximize my ownership of Twitter, but we'll try to bring along as many shareholders as we're allowed to.
You don't necessarily want to pay out 40 or whatever it is $billion in cash. You'd like them to come with you in the.
Yeah, but I mean, I could technically afford it.
I heard that.
But what I'm saying is this is not a way to sort of make money. I think it's just that I think my strong intuitive sense is that having a public platform that is maximally trusted and broadly inclusive is extremely important to the future of civilization.
But you've described yourself.
I don't care about the economics at all.
So a couple of interesting things there. He's got a plan B. So now that he's really been rebuffed on being able to buy Twitter because of this crown prince, so he has a plan B. I'm curious. We're going to find out more about what that exactly is. But the second piece is that he says it was kind of quiet, and he mentioned it, but he's talked about freedom and democracy, and he said more. He said even more than just the United States. Like more than
yes, I picked up on that as well, and I feel like Americans don't really understand that. They were like, "What? What are you talking about?" But inside America, yes, we don't see this as a sort of watering hole for conversation, right? We see it as a place where conversation only we like, that only involves us. Like the American way of using Twitter is very ethnocentric, but he feels like for all democracy, there needs to be an open space to speak. And that I find that fascinating.
Well, and there's a couple of speculation like that he would, because a lot of, when he made this announcement, a lot of people bought Twitter stock. And so if he dumps that because he's like, oh, this platform is useless, we know the kind of power he has with predictions to Wall Street. He could tank that stock.
Well, and he could tank the stock.
Then he'd get another SEC violation on his back and have to.
No, I don't think that. The real concern is, as a trader myself, the real concern here for that would be that there would be a lot of generational bag holders. What I mean is there will be a lot of people who bought Twitter stock thinking that it's going to skyrocket. And then it peaked, it went up into the 50s, and then now it plummets, and they're going to hold on as a bag holder. They're going to hold on for 30 years, hoping that it actually goes above that $55 range again. They're just going to and they're going to keep holding, and it may never go back up.
Yeah.
Because he basically lifts it up and then it crashes.
Well, and I'm wondering how many people purchased because of that news. You know what I mean? Because you look at any of the. Yeah.
A lot of people.
But that gives Twitter a fiduciary to shareholders to not rebuff him further, I would think. Because then shareholders, because you run the risk of shareholders, which has happened, suing the board for making a decision which tanked the company. That absolutely has happened. And this puts the board and owners of Twitter in a shaky place, because if they rebuff, especially now we're thinking about, like, there's two different things at play here. One, there's like running Twitter for a profitable company, which is the fiduciary that you have when you go public to your shareholders. But then there's also the idea of rejecting this offer because you worry about an actual democratizing of speech, right? And if they make this sort of woke choice, I'm going to call it, then they're going to have to answer to the board for what they've done to their fiduciary responsibility. That's tricky.
And holy shit. I mean, here we are sitting here talking about this, and breaking news. We were just talking about Vanguard. We were just talking about BlackRock. We were just talking about these companies. And wouldn't you know it, in the last hour, Elon Musk is no longer now the largest shareholder of Twitter. Vanguard has now increased its stake in Twitter, making it now the largest shareholder in Twitter. So Vanguard has now pushed Elon Musk out as its largest shareholder. According to, this is live right now, according to the Wall Street Journal, Elon Musk is no longer Twitter's largest shareholder. But so it's going to be really interesting to see like what his plan B is here, because you've got a lot of people, liberals are melting down over this. For instance, CUNY journalism professor Jeff Jarvis, who wrote the book What Would Google Do? He drew dramatic comparisons between, I'll put this tweet up here on the screen, dramatic comparisons between Musk's hostile takeover of Twitter and the German Reich, the Third Reich. Let me put up this. Look at this. Today on Twitter feels like the last evening in a Berlin nightclub at the twilight of Weimar, Germany. This is like so I love Ben Shapiro's response. Yes, Hitler was indeed famous for his attempts to broaden the mechanisms of free speech, just like Elon Musk. And it gets worse. Here's Max Boot.
This one blows my mind still. I'm frightened by the impact on society and politics if Elon Musk acquires Twitter. He seems to believe that on social media, anything goes. This line, I can't even read it with a straight face. For democracy to survive, we need more content moderation, not less. To which I love this response. Yes, tell me more about how the survival of democracy requires censorship. Like, how do you make this leap? I don't understand how you can say that free speech is anti-democratic. I did sort of go down this rabbit hole of like, what are these people thinking? Because these are academics who I have interacted with and listened to before. And the argument seems to go that censoring speech promotes engagement, but it only promotes engagement within a small subset of a spectrum of speech, right? And so they sort of liken it to censoring bots and spam. Like, hey, you know, if we just let bots and spam into our chat, it'd all be like all caps and crazy things. And so we need to get that out of here so we can all have a conversation. So then a dissenting opinion is like bot and spam. I cannot follow it. I literally cannot follow it.
I mean,
yeah, and I see these polls. Sorry, Clayton. I see these polls that are like, you know, asking people, do you want more censorship? And you get like 20-30% of people saying yes. And I'm like, who are these people? Like, what kind of world do you want to live in where you're going to be controlled speech? Like, you can't hear certain narratives. Like, you want to be protected.
Understand it, because like I said, I was somebody who just didn't want to hear nonsense out of Trump, and I was like, get that guy out of here. And I guess there are things that I sort of cheered for people not to say because I didn't like it.
But that's what the block button is for.
Sure.
Right.
And I consider myself a liberal person. I'm socially very liberal. And so I have felt like, oh, I don't want to hear this. I don't want to hear this. I don't want to hear this. Right. And so I've in the past have felt like maybe if those people can't speak, then more people will think like me. But that's very myopic. I'm admitting that it's myopic. I'm just sort of giving you it's not a rationale. It's a mindset.
Well, even some of the people that I respect, I mean, in the tech world, like someone like Jonathan Morrison, who he has a YouTube channel and does great work. I was reading some of his tweets when this news was coming out about Elon Musk, and it seems to me one of the big arguments is it's a lot of whataboutism. Like, well, Elon sometimes blocks people that don't agree with him. So he's not a real free speech purist. It's like, well, no, he doesn't want.
But that is free
attacked.
speech.
That is free speech. You don't have to stand there and be yelled at. You can walk away. And that's what he's like. Hey, you want to yell at me? I don't want to listen to that. Like, I don't want to be yelled at.
Yeah.
And Robert Reich, who former Clinton administration official, says, this is the same guy, that he, this isn't the tweet I was hoping for, but this morning Musk bid $54 by a share of Twitter, nearly 40% higher than stock before. Anyone concerned about another oligarch taking over a news source? Trump must never be allowed back on Twitter. I mean, talk about ridiculous. But Robert Reich specifically talked about, well, this is the same guy that didn't like that there was this young college kid who was tracking his private jet. So he reached out to the kid to buy him off or buy his loyalty or whatever. It's like, so I wouldn't, if someone stood out my house or was standing in front of my house, tweeting about my home address or constantly tracking my car, and tweeting about it, Clayton's going to the Wawa again to get another sandwich. Now he's going over here. He's going to have a toasty. He's going to stop over here and get a little toasty sandwich. Or now he's going to go get a coffee. And now he's going to the Home Depot to fix his toilets. I don't know that I would like that either. So Elon's like, hey, can you maybe not stop tracking my plane? Okay. But that's still free speech. He can tell the guy not to do it if he doesn't like it.
Yeah.
But it's not like he got him and put in prison. Or
right.
Something.
And
I think for him to be
it's-
canceled.
People are
Right.
calling him homophobic because he had said something about people using their pronouns, with all this pronoun stuff, people, just in their email signature saying he, she, her, whatever. You're allowed to find that annoying. Sure, you can still be for it. You can still be for whatever you want and say, oh, for goodness sakes, we're doing this now. Does that make you homophobic if you think,
I don't think so, because I
Let
feel that
him-
way.
feel however you want that, but you're not a homophobe.
No,
so
not at
you
all.
can, sometimes people who sometimes I feel like I don't even know if I want to go down this rabbit hole.
Well, here, let me play.
I'll stop myself.
Here's the tweet I was thinking about this Jonathan Morris thing. Two things can be true. Elon has done a lot great for tech. Elon preaches free speech, but does not like free speech against him. Oh, okay. He also epitomizes the ideology of let's throw money at a problem. Does he? I mean, okay. So
Well, and the thing is,
Yes.
so what? If
in
that's,
a lot
if
of
that's
ways,
the only
sure.
thing that works,
Boring
because
tunnels to fix traffic, yes.
right.
Making electric cars to save the planet, yes.
Fighting against massive regulation when you're up against the oil and gas and tire industry, who
and if you don't
want you to do that.
those of us, us regular people, we don't have the money like Vanguard and BlackRock to throw money at those things. So you have to have somebody that can kind of come in and does the counter to what the establishment is doing with all of our money to use his to fight it. That's the only way.
Yeah, like Action Jackson says, Clayton, you're thinking about getting a panini. Yeah, I don't need a whole Twitter account devoted to my sandwich habits.
But I don't think he understands that he's going to get a lot of hate on Twitter, and he does already, and he will continue to, and he doesn't seem to really care that much about it.
No.
He at least is somebody who says how he feels, takes the punches, and then keeps going. So it's interesting to see how this will play out and whether or not there are actually it does seem with this Vanguard move, there are people who are afraid of it and are going to compete with him to throw more money at the problem to not let him have this power.
But we're okay with people like Larry Fink over at BlackRock, who literally just moments ago it was announced is getting a 21% pay increase, so that he'll get $36 million for last year. These are the guys that run the show. You have Vanguard now edging Elon Musk out of Twitter so that we can't have free speech back on Twitter. And these guys control the narrative. Just look at these guys.
Yes.
BlackRock and Vanguard. I swear I'm going to be focusing more and more on these guys. It's important to know about this. And by the way, Jack Prosayevic, he did the TED Talk on it, by the way. He said, you just can't keep printing infinite money, handing it to your rich friends at BlackRock without getting massive inflation. Thank you for attending my TED Talk.
Well, I was going to say, anybody that's, you're looking to rent a home these days in 2022 or 2023, chances are you're going to be renting it from BlackRock now.
Yes, yeah.
Exactly. Well, we've got more news to get to here. Let's talk about this story, and I want you to lead this one because this one is really stunning. I mean, well, I guess we want to give some context here first on what this Black Lives Matter bombshell of a story is in the New York Magazine by Sean Campbell, who, by the way, we should stay. This is, I think, we would like talk about skin color of reporters often, right? Like, hey, this story was written by this guy. He's a white guy. But I think in this context, this reporter is a black journalist named Sean Campbell, who really dropped a bombshell and amazing reporting from New York Magazine. And no one else is covering this in mainstream media.
Right. This is, I think, the angle that makes this worth talking about, because last week, a reporter for New York Magazine published a piece detailing all of the ways that the Black Lives Matter movement has been spending its money. And it does seem provable that this organization has lived, the founders have been spending the money in lavish ways. Right. And so what's interesting is that this, which is it's a very damning piece, does not seem really to be surrounding this organization or harming them, because so many journalists are afraid to talk about it, because talking about it is something that can get you associated with racism. Right. And so I admit I'm nervous to talk about it. But the more I read into this story, the more I felt like it's cowardice not to, because this is an organization that made millions of dollars in donation from people who, like us, just wanted the country not to be a place that's unsafe for Black people, right? So the slogan, Black Lives Matter, means you automatically understand fundamentally that the country is not the same experience for people of different skin colors, and that something must be done to make it so that we all have a similar experience with law enforcement. This money was raised on the images of Black children who were slaughtered at the hands of law enforcement, right? And so what happened now, the New York Magazine has pointed out that these organizers have bought $1 million homes in Canada and in Los Angeles. And in fact, the one in Los Angeles was sold for $3 million. And then a few days later was sold for $6 million. So somehow this $3 million profit was funneled into somebody's hands. At the same time, the local chapters, organizing chapters of Black Lives Matter, are saying we actually have not been able to get money out of the organization to help, let's say, activists for law enforcement, right? Or legal defense funds for people for families that were harmed, anything really. But at the same time, these founders, this $6 million home, they're saying, is a creative space. They call it campus. They're saying nobody actually lives here, but we can go here and brainstorm, which, okay, like absolutely, people who, with this intention, with the intention in mind of equalizing racial experiences, should have a space to advance that cause. So fine. But one of the founders was using this for like cooking videos and things like that. What are you going to say?
Well, I'm going to say
real quick, I was going to say to that, there was a story that I read that it was bought for $4 million by somebody in Black Lives Matter, and then sold to another person in Black Lives Matter for $6 million.
Right. I thought the numbers were 3 actually. So that $3 million profit was not accounted for. It does seem like there's a lot here that's just like, it's currently, not possible to post the article about this. There was a post article on one of the home purchases on Facebook, and Facebook has started blocking that and labeling it abusive, right? So attacking Black Lives Matter or asking about what the founders have been spending this money. This was about the first home in Canada when it became public that they had what? Oh, okay. You keep sort of breathing like you want in. Because I have a lot to say. Yeah. Okay, I'm just trying to give context here.
Okay.
And so when that article about the founders' home in Canada became public, Facebook started stopping the sharing of that article by saying this is abusive. So again, like if you ask for an accounting for money that is not taxable because it's going to a charity, then you could be labeled abusive or racist when, like, I want to say I'm not a racist, but I would like that for non-taxable money to have an accounting like any other charity has to.
Well, there's so much here to unpack. Number one, you hit at the top, and that's why I was trying to jump in, because you were like, I'm uncomfortable talking about this. And I was like, the reason you're uncomfortable talking about this is because at the heart of Black Lives Matter, if you care about social justice like we do here on this show, you care about people, you care about police brutality, and you care about young Black kids being killed by police forces with giant freaking armored vehicles that are given to them by the Defense Department because we spend $800 billion on a defense budget. So here, take all of these additional SWAT equipment and everything else that you're going to do. Shoot first, ask questions later. And so you care about these stories like Trayvon Martin. We care about these stories about redlining and the housing crisis in the United States.
Sure.
We care about these people not being able to defend themselves. They have no money to defend themselves at trial. And so when
people who live in concentrated areas with more pollutants because of their skin, the color of their skin, we cover that all the time. Absolutely. These are the types of things like getting pollutants out of these neighborhoods. Like all of these things should be the work of Black Lives Matter.
So then when you hear a story like, well, Black Lives Matter is allegedly fraudulent, and oh, by the way, they raised $90 million, and and guess what? That money is not really going to what you think it's going to. So it makes you uncomfortable, right? It makes you uncomfortable.
I'm uncomfortable with you saying fraudulent, because when you give a donation, you give the fiduciary of that money to the founders of that organization.
But don't they have a responsibility through what they're they have to file, and they have to show where they're spending this money. They have to say, and they have to specify where this money is going.
Right. And that's what's damning about the Post article or the New York Magazine article, is that there's proof that they were actively trying to hide the purchase of this property.
So that's what I want to get to.
I talked to somebody that had a charity organization. I think it's a 503c or something like that, I think they're called. Mm-hmm. And they were talking about how stringent the taxes are for those versus a regular business.
Yes.
Like it's even more so that you have to account for everything.
Right. In fact, the charity was awarded tax-exempt status from the IRS in December of 2020, meaning that they would have to disclose information about donors and expenditures in an annual filing known as a 990. But they did not do that for 2020 or 2021. And it seemed like they had an attorney working for them because they weren't actually doing this. Amazon Smile then suspended the organization from its platform in February of this year. And Black Lives Matter has removed donation links from its website. And then in March, actually, the Black Lives Matter Super PAC sent an email soliciting donations for political contributions so that they could get candidates that they support elected, and they got in trouble for that. They had to actually give that money back because according to IRS charity rules, you cannot be a charity and solicit political contributions at the same time. So they then said that they were going to refund that money that they raised through their Super PAC.
Angel Baby Card says, I'm so confused. And you should be, because it is a confusing story. And the fact of the matter is they raised $90 million, right? From people, from good, hardworking Americans who maybe sent them a $10 donation. They thought that their money was going for social justice. It's going to help. Instead, it gets spent on a $6 million house. And when this reporter, this is one big part of this story, Sean Campbell, he reaches out to the Black Lives Matter organizers to get to the heart of this story. Like, what's with this $6 million house and more? Has a lot of questions about it. It turns out on March 30th, he says, I asked the organization questions about the house, which is known internally as Campus. Afterward, he said, leaders then circulated an internal strategy memo with possible responses. So they basically circled the wagons. Oh no, this reporter's asking questions.
Well,
right?
I'm unclear about this. How did he get access to this? Did they send it to him?
He got access to this email. Afterwards, leaders circulated an internal strategy memo with possible responses. So there's someone there trying to do good, right? And someone's concerned about this and leaked these internal emails to this reporter. Among the things that they were then angling back and forth in this email exchange was, can we kill the story? That was one angle. Another angle was we need to deflate ownership of this property, meaning we need to like pretend we're not really owners of this mansion. Okay, that was another angle. And there's like bouncing ideas back and forth, like how do we lie about this? How do we hide this? Another part of the memo includes bullet points explaining, quote, that campus is a part of a cultural arm of the organization, potentially as an influencer house. Like what was that crazy house where if you're like an Instagram influencer, you would go, what was it called?
I have no idea. I wasn't invited.
No, you know, I wasn't invited either, but you would go.
Ronald McDonald House?
No, it was called like, anyone in the chat, let me know. It was pretty popular last year. It was called like Hype House. Hype House, that's what it was called.
Well,
anyway,
they were looking for ways to both say it's a safe house because our founders have been threatened personally, but also we're going to use it to broadcast our message far and wide. So both things can't be true. It can't be a safe house and also be a place to broadcast far and wide.
Right.
That doesn't work.
So how are you? Yeah, it's simultaneously a confidential refuge and a place for broadcasting to the widest possible audience. So the memo also says there's holes in security in our story. The fact that we used public YouTube videos, like we had, because these members of Black Lives Matter broadcast from this house on the back patio, and we're talking about like, and there's cooking videos and other things. But I think that's one big piece of it. Like, how are we going to angle and hide this? People donating money, $80 million, $90 million to Black Lives Matter for what they believe are good causes, right? There's all sorts of trouble with Black Lives Matter, even beyond this story. But people donating money thinking it's going to go for good causes. And then the third part of this, I think, is really troubling, is that these executives or these people that are at the higher ups of Black Lives Matter are like living this sort of lavish life in the $6 million mansion, while actual on-the-ground, boots-on-the-ground organizers for Black Lives Matter are literally can't pay their rent.
Yes.
And there's lots of reports in this story about these boots-on-the-ground organizers for Black Lives Matter who don't live in this mansion, can't even pay their rent, and they're literally at poverty level. And
in fact, one mother of a black child that was killed by police brutality said, please stop fundraising on my child's name because you're not really helping us at all.
Yeah.
And so, okay, what can we do? So there's two questions here that bother me. One, will this story touch them, or will it slide off like Teflon? Will they actually like follow the rules, file their 990 and stop political action, campaign, donation, solicitation? And what can we do if we care about a movement like this, but do not want anything to do with this organization? Are there ways to, locally make a difference, right? Like,
well, and the thing is,
support legislation in your own town, perhaps.
And we know that the model can work. Like if they wanted to have a very lucrative model, they could just follow the Pink Ribbon campaign model, because the lady that runs that is like very rich. You know what I mean?
Sure, Lance Armstrong said the bracelets, right? There's, fine.
But I have a problem too with this reporter. I mean, let's talk about this reporter. I mentioned he's black. Someone in the chat says he's brown. I guess that's what we're saying now. Don't call him black, call him brown. Okay, he's a person of color. Nevertheless, he says he's gotten death threats now. And the fact he's, people calling him racist, that they're saying like, how dare you like bring this story? And even one of the original people featured in this piece says that he's spreading disinformation about me, and he has an axe to grind with me. And that's how quickly this kind of a story gets swept under the rug among liberal media.
Well, it's worth asking: are there other charitable organizations like this where the founders have benefited personally, and we don't look? I don't have an answer to that, but that question.
Well, that's what I'm saying. That's why I brought up Pink Ribbon campaign, because that exactly happens. They're making so much money hand over fist. That's $1 billion industry.
But is there anybody personally making money?
Oh yeah, the people running it, the quote unquote executives at the top, are making a lot of money.
So then we should see an equivalent story.
Yeah, I mean, there's been stories. Remember the Jerry Lee Lewis telethon? I mean, I was a part of that at one point when I worked.
Oh, right.
I worked for NBC News back in the day, and the way that this would work, if you were on an NBC, I think it was NBC, you used to carry the Jerry Lee Lewis telethon, and it was like an all-day thing, right? You would call in and you would give money for Jerry Lee Lewis, whatever it was. and they would raise all kinds of money. And so what they would do is the Jerry Lee Lewis telethon organizers would fly you out to Los Angeles, like as a news anchor. So like I worked for the NBC affiliate in West Virginia, and they flew me out. I was the main anchor to Los Angeles, and all of these other news anchors were flown in for a weekend, and where we were like sort of trained on how to do the whole live, long, all day charity thing for our hometown. Like, you're going to be on the air for 12 hours. It's going to be a long day. Here's what we found really works. And it was almost like a training. And I was young and naive at the time. I was like, okay, this makes sense. That way we're all on the same page. It's for a great cause. Yeah. And then later on, when you have the open internet and you're able to dig deeper and you find out, like the Jerry Lee Lewis telethon, like almost none of that money goes to actually helping the people that need it.
So just I know this is a small thing, but it's Jerry Lewis. Jerry Lee Lewis was the musician who wrote
was Great Balls of Fire.
Oh, yeah. Jerry Lewis. I'm sorry, Jerry Lee Lewis. No, it's not a small thing at all. It's totally different.
I watched a documentary too on the Pink Ribbon campaign, and that's exactly, I can't remember the percentage, but the percentage that goes to the actual breast cancer awareness is very small compared to all the people, all the.
Well, then if these exposés exist about white-run charities, then it's fair game, right? But if this was the only exposé about a charity being mismanaged, then we could see the racist angle, right?
I mean, it's ridiculous. Yeah, exactly. That would be the racist angle here. I mean, but the fact that, like, I think the other side of this is that woke media is blocking you from sharing this story. Like, I want to share this New York Magazine story on Facebook about how Black Lives Matter has taken people's money and bought $6 million houses with it, and has mismanaged money and is holding fundraisers that are not actually going to the root cause of what they stand for.
It destroys the narrative that they all go to. You're a racist, you're a Nazi, and you're a homophobe. Like, that's their triple, their hat
But
trick.
Those are Trump words, right?
Threat, yeah.
Those are Trump words. Like, if we actually want to talk about whether or not this is right, that people donated to this with the intention of, I would say that my donation, and I mean, I put the Black Lives Matter hashtag on my Peloton, to like, so I get high fives from other people who are like-minded. Sure. But I don't condone this kind of like two luxury house space. That was not the intention of joining the movement. So, that's all I have to say about it.
Yeah, Sandy says, Jerry Lee Lewis married his 13-year-old cousin. Yeah, totally different one is not who I meant. I meant Jerry Lewis. Jerry Lewis telethon. Yeah.
Right. But also, like, as a taxpayer, right, there's this idea that you can buy a house with non-taxable money. And, most of us cannot do that. And is that right? And as a taxpayer, we're giving them a tax incentive to do something, which I think the intention is not this.
No, I don't think so. I think when you cut a check to the Black Lives Matter movement, you're thinking, okay, maybe this goes to help housing issue, for the poverty issue, the social justice issue, and in the end, it's not doing that. So
well, and the thing is, like, there's no arm of the media that holds any of these accountable. It's like, and I keep talking about the Pink Ribbon campaign, but it's like people that donate to that have no idea how much money is actually going to what they think it's going to. But there's no journalists holding them. Like I said, there's a documentary, but it's one of those buried documentaries that you have to search for. It's not like prime time, media source did it.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, and there are some sources out there that can document like how much money, when you donate money, does it go to the particular cause, or is it like the Jerry Lewis telethon? I think the number at the time, don't quote me on it, was like 75% of your donation to the Jerry Lewis telethon thing it went to basically like gatherings and like parties and get-togethers and things like that. It didn't even go to the actual
like
charities.
Your taxpayer dollars.
Yeah. It goes to bombing other countries. It doesn't go to actually infrastructure in the United States.
Oh, no, your taxpayer dollars will also buy expensive 4th of July parties for diplomats all around the world.
Yeah,
that's true. Oh, and as we now know,
something I support.
They're sex parties.
Yeah, that's right. The Republican sex parties.
Philip is for that. He likes hot dogs.
I'm all for that. Yeah, let's do it.
Let's eat hot dogs in countries that don't eat pork.
To think about it, though, honestly, I would rather spend more of my tax dollars went to lavish parties than to know how many bombs we're making and dropping places. If they were, if I know, unfortunately, but if they were like, you know what, we'll do less bombs but more parties, I'd be like, Psh, do it.
Well, and a lot of people didn't realize in 2008 when Obama was
Hype House.
I can't remember where Obama was bombing, but we actually ran out of bombs. The United States ran out of these specific bombs that they were dropping and had to make more. Like
that happens,
Yeah. It's unbelievable. Like I can't believe
finite.
I mean, that's something we should never.
We're down to 1 6-pack down here. We better be making a call home.
Yeah. David Dean, the human juggernaut, says, I knew something was up with BLM. Reason why I never donated, I gave to people who I knew were traumatized. So
awesome.
That's a way to go straight to the source rather than through an organization.
Yeah, there was a lot of like grassroots organization in Portland, because I know Portland was kind of like a BLM hotspot. But where like they would fight evictions by if they found out somebody was going to be evicted, they would just go en masse to that house and basically just like surround it and camp and not allow the people to be forcibly evicted.
There you go.
I mean, there's a lot of really
well, because that should be the job of the police.
Sure,
doing
there's
that anyway.
plenty like that need to be done, right?
Exactly.
That's a need.
Like when did the police start working for banks?
Yeah. They said like the police working for banks, and I'm all yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's going to do it for us today. Recall that we don't have a show on Fridays any longer. It has been our pleasure to be here with you all week on Rumble, on Facebook, on Twitch, on Twitter, on YouTube. Once again, thank you so much for joining us. Do we have any last-minute housekeeping things?
No, just make sure you sign up for our newsletter so that God knows if we get banned again. That you'll know where to find us. Go to morninginvest.com to sign up for our daily newsletter. You get it first thing in the morning around 6:30 or so in the morning Eastern time over your cup of coffee. It'll get you up to speed on what's happening in the world. You can read it in about 10 minutes. Plus, we'll send out alerts and different things on that email occasionally when we want to let you know about something.
And
morninginvest.com.
Next week, we got something awesome coming, so you want to be on that newsletter because we're going to be making a pretty important announcement. Pretty big announcement.
That's a tease. That's like J-Lo telling only her newsletter that she got engaged.
That's right.
That is the tease.
Barbara Waite says, super chats? Good. I think we just had one from David there. Do we have any other super chats that came in?
Nope, that was it.
That we didn't get to? Okay, that was it.
We got to that one. Yeah.
All right, guys. Well, thank you guys so much for joining us. That is a wrap. And we will see you back here Monday.
Monday,
everyone.
All right. Hey, have a great Easter, everybody. And if you celebrate anything tomorrow on the Holy... Easter's on Sunday.
Oh, my gosh. I got to get more green clothes.
What? Oh, we already dyed our eggs. So we did that.
For green on Easter, too?
The Reese's peanut butter eggs.
Yes, we have some of those. We do. And tomorrow's a holy day for a lot of people. So I hope that is wonderful for you and you spend time with your family. And don't worry about all this geopolitical stuff for a little bit. Just try not to. Have some fun.
Bye,
I give
everyone.
you permission.